Right now, warmth is the last thing on your mind. A thermostat clicks on somewhere in the wall and the cold is gone before your skin even registers it. You walk from a heated house to a heated car to a heated office, and the only real cold you feel all day is the few steps between doors. For you, winter is background noise. An extra layer, a scraped windshield, maybe a complaint about the sun setting too early. For almost the entire span of human history, winter wasn't background noise. It was the one test you couldn't afford to fail. It didn't come at you one problem at a time either. It came from 4 directions at once. The cold could kill you, starvation could kill you, predators could kill you, and the long pitch black nights could break your mind before any of the others got the chance. So here's the real question. No furnace, no store shelves, no walls that actually block the wind. How did anyone survive that year after year? Because they didn't just survive it. Your ancestors walked straight into some of the most brutal environments on Earth and made it out alive. How they pulled that off is one of the most remarkable stories in our species' history. So stick around and hit subscribe because this channel is full of them. Your body was never built for this. Strip away modern comforts and you're looking at a fairly weak survival machine when it comes to cold. No thick fur, no natural insulation built for snow. Compared to a wolf or a bear, you're practically defenseless against freezing air, and your internal thermostat has a narrow window before things start to shut down. That's not an exaggeration. Your core temperature only needs to drop a few degrees before your muscles stiffen, your thinking slows, and your body starts making dangerous mistakes. Scientists sometimes describe the human body as a tropical machine, something optimized for warmth, not for winter. You do have a few built-in defenses. Blood vessels near your skin tighten to keep heat locked around your organs. A thin layer of fat helps slow the loss. But none of that comes close to solving the problem on its own. And yet, your ancestors didn't just endure winter, they pushed into Ice Age Europe. They pushed into Siberia, some of the coldest, most punishing land on the planet, and they made it their home. The obvious answer is fire, and fire mattered enormously. But fire has a flaw nobody likes to admit. It only warms you from one side. Step a few feet away, and the cold closes back in immediately. Fire couldn't travel with you. It couldn't wrap around your body while you slept, hunted, or walked across open, wind-blasted ground. Something else had to close that gap. That something was clothing, but not the kind you're picturing. Early humans wrapped themselves in loose hides, and for a while, that was enough. It wasn't. A draped hide still lets cold air slip in at every seam, every gap, every movement of your arms and legs. Survival in the coldest regions on Earth required a leap most people never think about. Clothing that was actually sewn to the shape of the body. That leap needed a tool. Archaeologists have found bone needles with tiny, deliberately drilled eyes going back more than 40,000 years. Proof that humans weren't just wrapping fabric around themselves anymore, they were tailoring it. Fitted sleeves, fitted hoods, seams tight enough to trap body heat instead of leaking it. For thread, they used sinew, the tough, fibrous tissue from animal tendons, strong enough to hold hide together through years of wear. Many archaeologists believe this single invention is part of what made survival possible in places like Siberia at all. Not certain, but a strong, well-supported idea, and a compelling one. Without it, the math of surviving that kind of cold barely works. Here's something worth sitting with. That technology never actually disappeared. The coat hanging in your closet right now is a direct descendant of a bone needle and animal sinew from tens of thousands of years ago. You just don't have to know how to use a needle yourself anymore. Which, if we're honest, most of us don't. Somewhere, an Ice Age tailor would be deeply unimpressed. So now you're warm, fire at your back, fitted clothing on your body, cold finally held at bay. But warmth alone doesn't get you through a 16-hour winter night. You still need somewhere to be when the sun disappears. And that problem was about to get a lot more complicated. Picture the sun going down. Not for 8 hours, for 16. No streetlights, no glow from a window, nothing but total dark rolling in over open, frozen ground. Wherever you are when that happens is where you're staying until morning. So the real question isn't just where do you sleep, it's what happens if you get this wrong. Getting it wrong means standing exposed while wind strips heat straight off your skin, while a fire you built minutes ago gets snuffed out by open air. You need something solid between you and that night. Walls, a roof, something the wind can't tear through. The instinct is to think, find a cave. And sometimes that worked. A cave blocks wind, holds a little warmth, gives you walls you didn't have to build. But think about what a good cave actually requires. Dry ground, proximity to water and game, an entrance facing away from the worst wind. Caves meeting all of that were rare. And you weren't the only one who noticed. Predators wanted them too. So did every other group of humans scattered across the same stretch of land. Most nights there simply wasn't one waiting for you. So people did something far more difficult. They built their own shelter from whatever the landscape actually offered. And in the coldest regions, the biggest available material wasn't wood, it was bone. At Mezherich in Ukraine, archaeologists uncovered the result, a structure roughly 15,000 years old, built almost entirely from mammoth bones. Skulls stacked as a base, long bones locked in as supports, tusks curved overhead like beams holding the whole frame together. This wasn't scrap thrown together in a panic. It was engineering, a deliberate structure using the largest raw material the Ice Age had to offer, built to survive an entire season of brutal wind. And shelter wasn't only about the frame. Ask yourself what actually makes a place worth sleeping in for months. Not just four walls. The ground underneath you matters just as much. At Sabudu Cave in South Africa, researchers uncovered the answer to that too. Bedding made from layered grass and leaves dated to roughly 77,000 years ago, some of it laced with plants that appear to have repelled insects. Long before anything resembling a house existed, people were already solving the much smaller, much older problem of getting decent sleep. A frame alone still does nothing against wind though. It needs skin. Hides were stretched across the gaps to block airflow. Packed earth and turf sealed every remaining seam. In some regions, people pack snow itself against the walls because snow, strange as it sounds, traps warm air remarkably well. Wind barrier, insulation, heat trap, all layered into what looks, at a glance, like nothing more than a pile of bones and dirt. And none of it happened alone. Moving mammoth bones that size, stretching hides tied across a frame, packing insulation before the first real storm, that's not one person's work, or even two. It took a coordinated group racing a deadline nature had already set for them. Shelter wasn't just architecture, it was cooperation built into the landscape itself. So picture where that leaves you now. Dressed for the cold, inside walls engineered to hold a fire's heat instead of losing it to the dark. For the moment, you're safe. But that same shelter creates a new problem, and it's one nobody solves by accident. Staying warm means staying put, tied to one location for months, unable to simply wander off when hunger strikes. And the land around that shelter has already made its decision. It has stopped producing anything to eat. The next fight isn't against the cold at all, it's against your own stomach, and it starts long before the first snow even falls. By the time the first real snow settles in, the land around your shelter has already made its decision. The plants are gone, migrating herds have moved on, insects, fish runs, ripening fruit, all of it vanishes on the same rough schedule. Winter doesn't just make food harder to find, it shuts off production entirely for months at a stretch. Which means survival stops being a matter of luck and starts being a matter of arithmetic. You can't hunt or gather your way through a famine that's already begun. Everything you're going to eat between now and spring has to already exist, stored somewhere before the ground freezes solid. Get that number wrong and no amount of shelter or clothing saves you. So the question becomes, how do you make food outlast an entire season? The first answer is drying. Meat and fish, sliced thin and left in sun and wind, lose the moisture that bacteria need to break them down. Add smoke from a low fire and you get something even more durable. Smoke carries natural compounds that slow decay further, while also keeping flies away from the drying meat. The result isn't just preserved. It's stable enough to last for months without spoiling, light enough to carry, and ready to eat with little preparation. This is the same basic chemistry behind jerky today. You're just doing it with far more urgency and far higher stakes. The second answer required no work at all once you knew where to look. Dig down into frozen ground, permafrost, and you find a natural freezer already built by the climate trying to kill you. Meat stored below that frost line stays cold enough, consistently enough, to keep through the entire winter. It's a clever reversal. The same cold that threatens to end you gets turned into the exact tool that keeps you fed. Nature's weapon repurposed as your pantry. The third answer is the one that mattered most, and it's easy to underestimate. Animal fat isn't just food. It's the densest source of energy available in the entire prehistoric diet. Lean meat alone, eaten in large enough quantities without fat, can actually make you sicker, a condition sometimes called rabbit starvation, where your body can't process that much protein without enough fat alongside it. Fat solved two problems at once. It delivered concentrated calories exactly when your body needed to generate heat to survive, and it kept your system running without overloading it on protein alone. In a season with no other calories coming in, rendered fat may have been the single most valuable substance a group possessed, worth more pound for pound than almost anything else they could store. Notice what these three methods have in common. Drying removes what decay needs. Freezing stops decay in its tracks. Fat concentrates the one resource winter takes away fastest: energy. None of these were discovered once and forgotten. They had to be learned, tested, and passed down deliberately, because a single wrong guess about how much food would last meant a group didn't make it to spring. This wasn't a lucky habit. It was inherited knowledge, refined generation after generation, carried forward the same way the needle and the shelter were. So now picture the full weight of what's been solved. You're dressed against the cold, you're inside a shelter engineered to hold heat through the night, and buried in the frozen ground around you, dried and rendered and stored, is enough food to outlast a season that produces nothing at all. 3 enemies down, but there's a 4th one left. And this one doesn't come for your body, it comes for your mind, in the dark for 16 hours at a time, night after night after night. 16 hours of darkness. No hunting, no gathering, no traveling across unfamiliar ground you can't even see. Just you, a handful of other people, and a fire for most of every single day, for months on end. Think about what that actually demands. The same small group, the same cramped space, night after night after night, with nowhere else to go and nothing forcing you to be anywhere else. That's not just physically confining. It's a psychological pressure the other 3 enemies never apply. Cold, hunger, and exposure attack your body. This one attacks your mind, and it does it slowly, over an entire season, with no obvious solution like a needle or a wall. So what did people actually do with those hours? A lot of it was work, just a different kind. Tools got repaired, hides got scraped and sewn, cordage got twisted from plant fiber or sinew, coil by firelight. Call it workshop time. Necessary labor that couldn't happen outdoors, now pushed into the one part of the day when nothing else could be done anyway. That alone would justify the hours. But something else was happening around that same fire, and it may have mattered even more. Long, unavoidable darkness turns out to be exactly the condition under which culture takes root. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Weissner published a study of the Zhuangzi, a hunter-gatherer community in the Kalahari. It's worth being precise about what that study actually shows. These are people living today, not fossils from an Ice Age cave. But their nightly rhythm offers a compelling window into a pattern that likely repeats across tens of thousands of years of human evenings. Weissner found that daytime conversation among the Zhuangzi tends to focus on practical matters, complaints, logistics, disputes. But once the sun goes down and a fire is lit, the tone shifts. Talk turns to stories, to songs, to the kind of information a group needs passed on but rarely has the stillness to share. That shift makes sense once you think about it. Firelight removes the pressure to work, to hunt, to move. It leaves nothing to do but sit together and talk. And something about that specific stillness makes people more willing to open up. Which means this 4th enemy, the one built to wear down the mind, may have done more than get survived. Around those same fires, over hundreds of thousands of winters, humans weren't just waiting out the dark. They were teaching each other how to survive the next one, passing down which needle worked best, which plants kept insects out of bedding, how long meat needed to dry before it was safe. You're reading this because someone told a story once, and someone else remembered it well enough to tell it again. That chain never actually broke. It just changed shape. From a voice by firelight to a video lighting up a screen in the dark. 4 enemies, 4 answers. Cold met with a needle and thread. Hunger met with dried meat, frozen ground, and rendered fat. Long nights met with walls built from mammoth bone. And the darkest enemy of all, the one that came for the mind, met with a fire, a voice, and a story worth remembering. Now picture that person again, standing at the mouth of a shelter as the first snow falls, watching it with something close to dread. Then picture you doing the exact same thing, through a window, coffee in hand, feeling nothing but calm. That gap between the two of you isn't an accident. It's the finish line. Every needle, every fire, every story told in the dark added up to this, a version of winter that can no longer touch you. If you want to see what else your ancestors quietly beat for you, subscribe. There's a lot more waiting in the dark.